What is up, you guys? Lucius here from Toe Trap Tribe, back with part 3 of the Naruto Isekai Guide. Now, I'd like to take a quick second and thank you guys for your support on parts 1 and 2. You're doing really great. When we started this, we didn't have but 30 subscribers. Since those two videos came out, we're at 57 subscrimbos at the time of this recording. So if you guys would please subscribe, it really helps out the channel. Leave a like, comment, all that good stuff. Let's get right into the video, shall we? So, quick note, if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, please go watch those. They should be popping up anywhere. Without further ado, where we last left off, the forest of mother freaking death, bro. Alright, so I told you that your teammate wasn't very confident in you going into this part of the tuning exams, and with good reason. They haven't seen your new moves or anything like that, so this will be a bit of a dress rehearsal for you before the combat rounds of the tuning exam start. So you're given an earth scroll, and as we all know, the goal of the Forest of Death is to achieve a heaven and an earth scroll, and you must get them to the specified point before the time runs out. And if you do not do so, then you are eliminated. So, with that being said, you and your team set out, and it's pretty clear that Yamanaka is really intent on giving out orders to you and Adamuku. He seems to have elected himself the spiritual leader of this group, but really he's just the loudest. And you kind of go along with it because you're all working together right now, and you really don't want to have to go up against both of them. Because even though Adamuku doesn't look like she's too into the idea of having Yamanaka boss her around, she's going along with it, which is something you hadn't observed before. They both have a mutual dislike for you, it seems, but they actually don't get along that well. So the team definitely has some work to do in terms of chemistry. But as you go along, you're stopped when a rain of shuriken hurl themselves through your path. One nearly misses you by like an inch or two, and you freeze up. Yamanaka, he stops in his tracks. Adamuku, however, seems to have deflected at least several of these shuriken with a kunai knife. Very impressive. But what's going on anyway? She takes some shuriken out of her own bag and she hurls them into a bush down by the forest floor. Once the bush is disturbed, two large shadows leap out and approach you. Seems to be two men from a rival village. They tell you that if you don't fork over the earth scroll, then they'll take it from you by force. Now, this is a little bit odd. There were all 3-man units before we headed into the forest, right? So why is there only 2 guys here? Instantly, as you're finishing this thought, you realize that there's a 3rd member somewhere, and this is probably an ambush. So you dive towards Yamanaka and push him out of the way just in time to get tackled into a tree trunk by a 3rd man. Now, this guy's kind of pissed off that you ruined his plan, so he just starts wailing on you, punching you in the face. You got a bloody nose. It looks bad, guys. And you think this would be a pretty good time to break out your fire style dragon flame bomb technique, but you're not in a good position right now. Unfortunately, as you're getting your ass beat, the other 2 come and join in. Now, one guy lifts you up by the hair and he puts a knife to your throat. He tells Yamanaka and Adamuku that they have a choice. They can either hand over the earth scroll right now, or they'll cut your throat and you'll die. Now, interestingly enough, Yamanaka actually seems a little conflicted. He's not outright ready for you to die in front of him, it looks like, but you can tell he is kind of deliberating it. Although you're sure deep down he realizes that it would be a lot easier if he just went along through this. So while he's hesitating, Adamuku actually weaves a set of hand signs, and you're not really sure what she's doing as you haven't seen her in too much action, but you notice the tree bark underneath you starts to shift and move. An orange, amber-like substance seems to bubble up from underneath the bark, and you realize that it's tree sap. It seems like Adamuku is manipulating the tree sap, and it has started to snake its way up of the enemy's clothes, now almost encapsulating them entirely in tree sap. Now, Their heads are still above. They manage to squeak out, "What's going on?" I want to know too, like, what is this? Well, it just so happens that Adamuku's clan has a unique ability to where she can manipulate pretty much any liquid as long as she imprints her chakra signature. Now, she did that earlier when she threw those shuriken. You just didn't catch it. You're definitely a bit in shock, but now that the bad guys have been restrained, you can kind of move freely now. You make your way back over to your party, and you watch as the enemies are kind of just stuck there, staring up at the forest ceiling. They don't have a scroll on them, as you later find out, but you can't waste too much time. There's a time limit after all. So you guys decide to head on your way. To literally nobody's surprise, Yamanaka is quick to admonish you for being captured, even though he would have gotten the scroll taken away from him if you hadn't been around to move him out of the way in the first place. But, strangely enough, this is when Adamuku decides to speak up and suggest that the party should go separate ways for a bit and scout ahead. What an odd set of directions. And Yamanaka is quick to point this out, saying that it's a silly idea for them to split up at any point, intentionally, and that they should keep moving forward as a group. But Adamuku insists, and she speeds ahead of the rest of you, disappearing into the foliage, forcing the two of you to give chase. Once you manage to get into the clearing that you believe she went into, you're faced with an odd sight. There's no Adamuku here at all. Great. Could this seriously be another ambush attempt? But something doesn't really feel right. You get that sense once again that the hair is standing up on the back of your neck. And just out of the tree line, a shadow steps forward and emerges, revealing a man in a cloak. He steps forward, takes off the hood, and you notice that it's a rather portly man with an orange mohawk. He doesn't identify himself, but he does tell you that he was sent here by his leader to find out more about you. That's all he says, and before you even get a chance to react, he dashes forward and absolutely clobbers Yamanaka. He's sent flying into another tree. It even splinters the bark when he makes contact with it. That's not good. Yamanaka's the strongest genin you know, but he just got tossed around. Who is this guy anyway? Well, he doesn't give you much time to think. He reaches down towards the ground, digs his fingers into the dirt, and he heaves up and pulls out a giant boulder of rocks. He throws it at you, and it speeds forward so quickly you can't possibly imagine how strong this guy would have to be. But you manage to move, just barely. As you emerge on the other side of the speeding boulder unscathed, your assailant gives you a silent smirk and tells you you're going to be a lot more fun to play with than your friends were. That's when he pointed to a nearby tree, and you could see several dozen feet off the ground Adamuku suspended by what appeared to be a spider web. Another cursory glance at Yamanaka reveals that he's not doing much better. He still hasn't budged since that last attack, so it looks like you're on your own. You don't get much time to think about it as the man charges once again. This time he goes for a shoulder tackle. You narrowly sidestep, but as soon as he passes by you, his arm extends out and his forearm clubs you in the side of the face. You're launched a few feet in the air before you come crashing back down to the ground hard. Seeing you prone, he launches himself into the air and readies himself to make a massive stomp that would turn you into a pancake if you didn't get out of the way. He connects, but you ready to substitution just in time, and you watch the scene unfold from atop a tree branch. This fight can't be won up close. You're gonna have to hit him with your new move, but you need to create an advantage. So, you ready your weaker technique, a fire-style shuriken attack, and this manages to go widely awry. But, because he avoided the attack and he was on the move, he lost his footing. This was enough for Yamanaka, who started moving again, to launch an earth trap. As the large man started to sink up to his knees into the ground, his skin turned an odd color, and he burst out of the trap with shocking ease. His skin turned back to his normal tone, and then he turned back towards Yamanaka. He laughed, and then he went for another bull charge. You had to do something fast, so you launched yourself from your branch towards the large man. You ready to kick, hoping that all the momentum you would use from traveling such a distance would be enough to at least knock him off course. But, unfortunately, he catches your leg as it almost connects with his chin, grabs it, and slams you into Yabanako instead. You feel your ribs give as you cough up a bit of blood. Yabanako seems like he's totally out of it at this point. But, to your surprise, Yabanako is still trying his best to hang in there. He makes a weak grab at the man's legs, trying to pull himself up, but he doesn't get very far. He's grabbed by the collar and tossed aside pretty casually, but he didn't leave without giving him a present. It looks like he had wrapped a paper ball around one of the guy's ankles, and he didn't notice until it was too late. The explosion, happening so close to you, forced you to move out of the way at the very last second. There was a huge cloud of dust. You couldn't see what was going on the inside, but you assumed that guy had to be dead. But sure enough, his skin had taken on a red hue and he looked mostly unscathed. He turns towards Yabanako and readies another large boulder that he lifts from the earth. This is going to be your last shot, you think to yourself, and you ready yourself a fire-style dragon flame bomb. This one is gonna be one for the record book, folks, because you weave your hand signs, you take in that big inhale, and expel flames at such a speed that crash into this guy's back and just light him ablaze. Even the giant boulder he's carrying starts to melt and fall apart as it hits the ground, and there's nothing but seems like a shadow inside of the flames as they dance. Finally, the smoke clears, and you can get an idea of what's happened. Yabanako's unharmed. He was just slightly outside of the blast zone, but your assailant is nowhere to be found. There's no trace of him, no ashes, anything. Could you really have disintegrated him that thoroughly? You don't think so. He must have moved on. However, you look down to where he was standing, and you can see the other scroll you need. You quickly go to collect it, and you try to pick Yabanako up, who is admittedly pretty thankful of your efforts. Now, your next task is going to be to get Adamuku down from that tree, which takes some work from both of you. You're all pretty badly banged up now, and now that you have both scrolls, you agree that you should probably try to avoid combat at all costs, which, frankly, isn't all that up to you, so you better get a move on. Without too much of an incident, though, you get to the timed location, and after you successfully hand in your Heaven and Earth scrolls, you're greeted with the sight that you seem to be one of the first pairs here. A fact that sends utter chills down your spine is it looks like Gaara and his squad have been sitting there for a while, just waiting. You decide to give them plenty of space and head over to another corner of the room, where Adamuku and Yabanako both exchange looks, and then they turn towards you. Adamuku is the first one to offer up apologies. She didn't expect you to be that capable this early, seeing as how far behind you were during the academy days. Then Yabanako's next, admitting that he definitely would have died if you hadn't stepped in. So it seems like the three of you are on much better terms now, which is great because you're going to need to be ready for the next round of the tuning exams. And that's going to be a real treat for you guys because Nai and Tango Black will be joining me for those parts. I'm sorry it took so long for this part 3 to come out, but I made sure that this one was a little bit longer to make up for that. So tune in next week. We're going to be going back to our normal schedule, which is one of these every week. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.